With me today is Errin-leigh. Errin-leigh is a business development and marketing manager who has worked in the transport industry for quite a few years. But unlike many of her peers, Errin-leigh is also a qualified truck driver holding the highest driving license in Australia. Welcome, Errin-leigh, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Now, as I mentioned, you've worked in transportation for a while. So could you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, it was actually a fluke. I was in childcare for about 4 years, and a lot of my kids' parents said things like, "Oh, you'd be so good at sales." So I started doing sales, and then I took a job at a courier company and did sales there, and it kind of just grew into that, and I fell in love with it.
So what made you want to go into sales in the first place?
People were just telling me that I should, and that's where the money's at. Because childcare was a very low-paying job.
And it still is, unfortunately, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think your personality sort of lended itself to that sales sort of role? Because obviously when you're doing sales, you need to be bubbly, you need to be out there, you need to be prepared to speak to, complete strangers. So do you think you had those personality traits to start with?
Yes, but I definitely gained a fair few more and become a lot more tough-skinned and easier. I became better at rejection and handling rejection, honestly, over the years.
That's interesting. And so what sort of skills did you have to build up to be able to handle such rejection?
I took a lot of courses online about communication and toxic people, not taking things too personally. The 9 to 1 rule, which is you get 9 no's to get 1 yes, and just letting it all bounce off my shoulders. Stuff like that, and lots of practice over 7 years.
So did it take a little while to be able to come to terms with the fact that people would say no to you and it isn't anything necessarily regarding you personally, but it's just they had to just say no?
Yeah, and I still struggle now, but I get better every day.
So as I mentioned, you actually hold an MC driver's license, a truck license, I suppose we would call it, even though it's a driver's license.
Yeah.
What made you actually want to go and get that license? Because that is, as I said, the highest license that you can get in Australia. I think you're able to tow 2 or more trailers behind a truck. So why did you do that?
As spiteful as it sounds, to prove people wrong, mostly men. And then for a backup plan for myself, like when I'm a mum and I don't want to do sales anymore, just to open up a bit more of an opportunity there for something full-time. And just the feeling of accomplishing it was good enough for me.
So just touching on men slightly, obviously transport is heavily male dominated. And I think I've got a few stats here that, women only make up around 3% of all truck drivers in Australia and only about 1% of the long haul truck drivers. So you're obviously now part of that 1%. So was there anything other than sort of wanting to prove people wrong that drove you to, to be part of that 1%?
Yeah. I just strongly believe that whatever I do is standing up for other women that are behind me, next to me. The percentage just annoyed me, and I actually read an article that another female driver wrote about lack of amenities at the Port of Brisbane for females, lack of care, really. So I thought I'm better placed right now. Let's just give it a whirl. If I fail, I'll just keep going. But the amount of women that reached out to me made it all worth it. And I said to myself, I've done the right thing, because other girls will follow.
Absolutely. And look, I was going to ask you this sort of a little bit later on, but I'll jump to it now. So someone on Facebook has asked me to ask my guests, who inspires them? Because obviously you inspire a lot of people, and through this podcast, people will listen and feel inspired by the things that you're doing. You know, people see you on social media and they are inspired. But who inspired Errin-leigh to take that plunge and to be, you know, at the forefront of making change?
That's a tough one. I mean, I look up to some of the people I work with. One of my probably inspirations in the way of change and like really fighting for women, and she's really women are the future focused, would be Jacqueline Brotherton. She's the chair of Transport Women Australia Association, and I'm a member of that association. And I could just listen to her talk for hours. She's just an inspiration, and she's been everywhere. She's done all that. So everything I ever bring to her that's really killing me inside, she's just, don't worry about it. You know? So I think I'd have to say her. And probably the driver from years way before my time, Toots. I think she was the first female driver. There's a book about her. Okay. But, yeah.
So how much do you really cop? Because a few months back on LinkedIn, I saw you did a post and you put up a truck. I don't know what type of truck it was. And you mentioned the actual type, and you said something about the truck and the type of truck. And then some random guys come on and commented and said, no, you don't know what you're talking about type thing. It's not that truck, it's this. And then I think it might have been one of your colleagues jumped on and said, well, actually, it is right. And, you know, I actually really laughed out loud at that person, because I thought, firstly, why is anybody just jumping on and making that comment anyway? Because surely someone that's making the post knows what they're talking about. And secondly, because I don't actually think he came back and, you know, apologized for the fact that he was wrong. So how do you deal with that? Like, do you sort of laugh it off, or do you get a little bit irritated? Like, what is your response when that happens?
That time I did laugh because the fella that stood up to me was one of the managers, Craig, and he is so supportive. Like, he's the best. And when he got on there and just annihilated this dude, I was just, and we were all laughing in the office. But most of the time it's me alone copying it, and I have to deal with it inside myself. And I don't really want to talk to my fiance about it. I don't want to admit that it upsets me to anybody. But I ended up, after my truck license video, I ended up posting the results of that, and the amount of hate that got, and personally hate, like, that affected me greatly. So I decided to actually show people what people had said about me online, and no one could believe it. Everybody thinks that I am tough as nails and I'm just out there not shedding a tear, which is untrue. I'm getting better at dealing with the hate, but it doesn't stop, and it's often very, very personal, and I can be alone in a lot of it.
It absolutely blows my mind, though, you know, for someone to be getting hate because they've gone and they've achieved something. Like going and getting that truck license, that's a massive achievement. That's not something that you can just, you know, pay a few $100s and overnight you become, you know, this truck driver. That is a lot of lessons. That is a lot of time. That's a lot of investment that you've had to do personally to be able to get that qualification. And there's so many people out there, they can't even drive a car, let alone a truck. So it just astounds me. So what would obviously, you know, you still find it tough to deal with that, and a lot of it's personal, but what would you say to people that are starting out and maybe starting to cop the things that you have already experienced? What would your bit of advice be to them?
You need a really strong morning routine that will set you up for a day, and before you even get to work or you've even copped anything you already set up. And what I do in the mornings is, after I go to the gym or for a walk with my dogs, I'll listen to either a TED Talk, or one fella in particular is called Dan O'Connor Training, and he actually does communication training in his videos and teaches you how to take and I guess, decant what people are saying and why they're saying it and how they're probably feeling, because I never really thought that person online saying, Errin, you're shit at driving, I didn't realize they are probably hurting, and it sucks to see someone doing something that they probably thought about and they jumped for, or, you know, just they haven't accomplished what they wanted to and they're too old now, or they feel like they can't do it and they have to tear someone down. I should feel sorry for them, not me. So I would say
Absolutely.
set yourself up like that. Yeah.
So do you think it's a bit of a mix between men and women, the people that are getting online and giving that hate? Or do you think there's one gender that sort of overtakes the other?
Yeah, look, every woman commented nice things on that particular video. Every single woman. The only hate I got was from males.
Wow.
And we're not talking 27-year-olds. We're talking about middle-aged to grandfathers, you know, like, yeah, it was wild. But yeah, that age group and that gender.
That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Now, you're a really attractive woman. Do you think that that might play into it a little bit with regards to, I don't know how to phrase this, but, you know, so if somebody can't get, you know, have something that they want, you know, like they see you and you're attractive and, you know, you're somebody that they could never sort of be with, do you think that they then, I suppose, project more hate because of that, as opposed to, say, you were, you know, someone that doesn't look like you?
Well, thanks for that. I don't consider myself. I definitely know that meeting with men all the time, like in my actual job, there have been times where there's been a little bit of harassment, a little bit of male toxic masculinity against me, and I do often leave some meetings feeling like a little girl, like they've just completely diminished sometimes it feels like I don't even know what I'm talking about because of the way that they portray themselves towards me. I've had lots of inappropriate like comments, and one client even accidentally left me a 2-minute voicemail talking about me and my looks and my chest and my Facebook page, and it was wild. That was probably the worst. And I've had times where clients have followed me to my car to kiss me and smack me on the ass.
Wow.
All of that stuff. Yeah. So there are times like that. But yeah, I guess at the workplace it's not as bad, but it's online definitely. Maybe people are thinking that. I'm not sure. But as an older man, maybe.
I think they've got a few issues anyway. So yeah, who knows what's going on there. But do you think, you know, with those sorts of things that go on, and obviously in your role you do go out and visit a lot of sites, and you know you're customer facing, do you think that makes it difficult for employers in a male dominated industry such as transport to employ younger women because of fear of that sort of happening in the workplace, like because of fear of them going out to these sites and being harassed? Do you think that's a little bit of a barrier, or do you think they don't really sort of see that?
I definitely don't think anybody thinks about it. A lot of people, assume that I'm tough. And then the other side of it is the other people in the business I work for and have worked for have been in operational roles. They don't know what it's like. They don't even think about it. You know, salespeople are often, you know, just gone home or they're at the pub. They don't realize they're actually out there experiencing things like this. And, you know, there can be times where I actually meet with businesses at their homes, and I will text somebody and say, yo, I'm at this house. It's weird. If I don't text you in an hour, call someone. But yeah, I really don't think, like, my employers were like baffled when they saw all of the nasty comments to me when I showed them the voicemail. They just don't think about it at all. It's just just, I guess people trust people. They're good people. They think everyone else is good people. But yeah.
Do you think they should put like a bit more of a focus on that?
Well, yeah, I guess for all the girls in that sort of situation, same with, your real estate property managers and sales agents are alone a lot of the time. They're probably doing a bit more risk stuff like kicking people out. I mean, evictions and going to tribunals and stuff. I guess people don't really have because my relationship is business to business. They don't have a vendetta, or they're not angry with me. It's not personal. But yeah, I mean, anything as a female on your own, there's special things that we may do to try and help ourselves stay safe. But half the time, no one's thinking of you. Which is sad.
It's a bit depressing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't think about that before.
Now, I did want to ask you, just going back to sort of the driving the trucks, and then we'll sort of jump back forward to business development, but how hard was it to learn how to drive those vehicles?
Pretty hard, because it's the opposite of your instincts driving a car since you're 16. The gears are totally different to cars. And reversing, especially a B-double, when I reverse with my boat or my caravan, it just goes straight when I go straight. But the B-double, the back trailer doesn't want to cooperate with your instincts, so you have to switch them up. And it was just hard learning and trying to get somebody to teach me, take me for a drive, just let me have a go. And it cost me a lot of money because I had to go and get lessons from professionals, and they're not cheap. So it is hard, but it's also the funnest thing I've ever done.
That's what I was going to ask you. How fun is it?
It's the best feeling in the world. It's like being larger than life.
That's awesome. Now, transport is hugely important in Australia, and, most Australians would see on the back of trucks, without trucks, Australia stops, which is so, so true. But it's also a really, really dangerous industry. So I think the Transport Workers Union labelled it Australia's deadliest industry. So do you think about that when you're on the road? Do you think about the safety stats, and do you think potentially you could not go home to your family that night?
Yes. And now that my fiance works with me and he drives full time, there have been some scary times where he's actually called me and said, I love you. Like, this may be the last time you hear my voice.
Wow.
Because, I mean, the trucks are dangerous, yeah, and they're huge, but it's the people on the road that we're scared of now. You've got people on drugs and people with road rage so fierce that they don't care for someone's life in a truck, so, and that happens every day.
So what would you say to the drivers out there who, have absolutely no consideration for trucks and the distance it takes for them to stop, and the fact that, the truck drivers are professional drivers and they're dealing with so much every day? What would you say to normal everyday car drivers, motorcycle riders and cyclists about what they can do to make it safer for truck drivers?
I guess it needs to be a bit more personalized. Like, I know you may not be able to see us, but we're up there. We can see everything that everyone is doing up to 500 meters in front of us. And we've got dogs that won't understand why we're not coming home, or babies, we've got loved ones. And what's on the truck is probably coming to your house or your business, grow up. Basically, you'd be hungry and naked. That's the best way to put it without truck drivers.
Exactly. And look, especially coming into, the silly season, we're coming into Christmas, and everybody wants everything delivered, yesterday. So I think that's a really timely message to say, hey guys, if if there's no truck drivers, you literally have nothing. So yeah, have a bit of consideration. Now, I just wanted to ask you, sort of going back to business development. So you do marketing as well. So, you put out a lot of content. So I wanted to ask you where you get your inspiration for your content, and how personally do you take the things that you post, and then obviously the things that you receive, and taking aside, obviously the flack that you've copped on personal level for being a truck driver, but when you're posting things on behalf of your business, how do you come up with the content, and do you take it personally if someone says something negative about the place where you work?
100%. You could ask my CEO and she would agree that when we get a bad review, which does not happen often, but when we do, I take it massively personal. I've been in tears before because, that'll bring our stars from 5-star rating to 4.5. So I'll be running around the business saying, get in there and like us on Google. You've got to leave us a review on Facebook. I get really offended. And that's another thing I need to work on. I take a lot personally, and I'll go home and talk to a beer about it. But the inspirations is just basically, I think about what our drivers are doing. So I'll text our drivers and be like, yo, if anything cool, send it to me. Or I'll jump in the truck with them, or I'll go down to our truck yard, or I'll hang out at the port of Brisbane and just wait for our drivers to drive by. So I do spend a bit of time doing it or capturing the perfect shot. But I'd have to be honest, I do sit in front of the computer going, what can I call this? What can I caption this? What have I already used? And I'll have to scroll back through my LinkedIn, through our Facebook, and yeah, it can be tedious. And then sometimes like, God, that is so good, and it will flop. And then the ones I spend absolutely no time on, they're the ones that will blow up. And then the personal ones, that sometimes I just can't even believe how many views and comments I get on things. Like the one of me getting my MC got like 40,000 views and just hundreds and hundreds of comments. And I just woke up to that. I went to bed, I didn't even know. I woke up in the morning and I was like, so yeah, I take it personally, and I take it the same way as my personal and my business. Like, yeah.
And I think it's amazing, like when you do get those positive comments and everything, obviously you try not to take things on social media personally, but, it also gives you a nice buzz when people say nice things and, congratulate you on, such an achievement. So, yeah, I think that's well-deserved, those views for sure.
Thank you.
Now, Errin-leigh, the transport industry comes together frequently to support a diverse range of charities and things that happen, I suppose, the bushfires and drought and things like that in Australia. So I know you're heavily involved in those sorts of things. So could you tell us a little bit about the charities that you support and the importance of those charities within the community and how you got involved in that?
Yeah. So there was a couple that were in place when I came into Team Transport. So we have a partnership with the RSPCA and Beyond Blue. But other than those two that is commercial level, I am always involved in, which is really sad. It didn't happen this year because of COVID, but the Convoy for Kids every October and Lights on the Hill every November, or maybe around May. But they're like the highlight of my year. Sometimes there's 300 trucks, and including motorbikes and cars that convoy behind the trucks, and it's brilliant. The bushfires and the drought victims, we did a little drive just by ourselves at Team, and I got to drive the truck out and meet these farmers and these fire victims that were just destitute. That was just heart-wrenching, but it just enforces in me again, as long as I have the time and the cash, I will always volunteer and donate to people in any sort of less fortunate way than I am. And transport kind of is the backbone of drought relief and fire relief. Like, you've seen it. You would have known the hay runners. Like we've always got that. We've always been together anyway. Farmers and transport. That's how we make Australia go round. But yeah, it's definitely the most important part, and it makes you realise why you love transport so much. If you're having a bad day and then you go and do something like that, it just trumps it.
So being at the front line with things like that, with the drought, taking out the bales of hay and that sort of thing, how do you distance yourself emotionally from taking on the burdens that those people are actually feeling? Because, obviously everybody has empathy, or most people, and your heart goes out to them and you see it. But how do you then disconnect, I suppose, from the traumatic events that they are going through, so then you can go on and do your own job and do the things that you need to do as well?
It's hard. I still think about one particular farmer that I actually befriended on Facebook. I still check in with him all the time. Yeah, I find it really hard. But if I'm feeling really, really down, I'll look at my bank account for the week and send something somewhere, and it makes me feel a little better for that moment. But I could be laying down or watching my favorite movie and then straight into my head, So it never stops.
Yeah, I would find it really hard. I think it's obviously really nice to be able to help, but it's then it's the front and center of your mind, and would be very, very difficult. So Errin, what would your advice be to anyone wanting to enter the industries that you work in, whether that be truck driving or business development or marketing, about what they can do for themselves to, I suppose, prepare themselves emotionally, and also through, upskilling and things like that, to be able to fulfill those roles?
Definitely start by just applying for everything and see how you feel about the mentor and the culture of the place that you're going to go into before you say yes. Make sure you know that someone's back, and seek out somebody that you can just grab a hold of and just follow them like your life depends on it. I really bang on about TED Talks, but that's honestly taught me so much. I watch a lot of motivation videos, sales, even gym motivation movies and clips will help you feel that hunger and drive. And then if you need to go inside yourself the way I've needed to and really work on myself and my weaknesses to help understand other people and understand how to sell to a vast different people. But don't shut up. Just keep being loud and annoying people until they give you a shot. That's the best advice I can think of.
That's awesome. And look, Errin, I have so appreciated you taking the time to talk to me today, because, we don't know each other, on a personal level. We've spoken to each other a couple of times, and, I followed you on LinkedIn and find you really quite inspirational. And I know that you would be, that inspiration is spread through a lot of people. So, ignore the hate, because there's so much more people that find the inspiration in the things that you do, as opposed to, those middle-aged to old men that, might get a little bit disgruntled that you're not dating them. But I have one last question. One last question for you, Errin, and it's probably the most important of today. What would you do differently if only you knew?
I would not waste as much time as I have thinking about what people think and worrying about how I'm viewed. I would spend a hell of a lot less nights crying and a lot more nights drinking wine and talking to people that I love. And I would have probably started doing this even earlier, so I had more time just to enjoy it more.
So I want you to remember that every time that somebody gets you down.
Yes, I will take that advice.
Just replay this line. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's okay, Erin, and it's been such a pleasure. And if you'd like to know more about Errin-leigh, please feel free to follow her on LinkedIn. Maybe not stalk her on Facebook or anything unless she wants to sort of connect back with you, because we don't want any bad things to sort of happen. But more information about Errin-leigh will be on our website, ifonlyknewpodcast.com.au. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you. Bye.